I saw a video that explains how to do a dynamic rounded shaped donut chart that shows a percentage. That video had two methods. The first was relatively easy and the second was relatively challenging because it had mathematical concept and mathematical equations behind it. And I noticed that many of the viewers of that video found it difficult or even impossible to use. So I decided to figure it out and create a video explaining that method. And this is what you are going to learn today by watching this video. So let's begin. So this is our donut chart that has rounded shapes, which is not a standard chart in Excel. So how do we do that? First, let's understand our data. The value in cell B4, which represents the percentage, is the only input we have. The rest values are calculated. So if I change this to, let's say, 40, the percentage here will change to 40% and this will move to match that percentage. This is the concept that we want to build. Normally, if you want to build a standard pie chart, you will need the remaining and the percentage itself. The remaining or the remainder is the amount needed to reach 100%, which is 100% minus the percentage. And the percentage is the percentage we added here, which is 40 over 100. Since we're adding a number here, we have to divide it by 100 to come up with the percentage. So let's start with that. We select the data, insert a donut chart. Now we have our donut chart. Now I want to change the start of this donut chart to start from here and go anti-clockwise. That can be changed by right-click, format data series, and then change the angle. Let's change it to 90%. And let's see what's happening. If we say 60, 70, it's working fine. So now this is our count and this is the remainder or the remaining amount. Let's keep the color as is, change it to solid and keep it dark orange. And this part right here, let's keep it solid, dark orange, but change the transparency to 70%. Now our pie chart is ready, but it doesn't have the rounded shaped edges. And this is the challenge. Let me just remove the elements from the chart and let's try to figure out the concept. The concept here is that we want to add a scatter chart with 2 points. One to be here, which is fixed. This will not move because this is our start. And another one to be here, which is dynamic and moves along with the percentage. But first, you need to understand some mathematical concepts and equations to do that. So let's jump to our slide where you will find the explanation to do that. So, we have a triangle with a 90 degrees angle. Let's call this angle D. And we'll call this Y, X, and R as shown here. The basics of the sine and cosine equations are written here. The sine of any angle equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. And the cosine of any angle equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. In this case, sine D equals Y over R. Cosine D equals X over R. In a bit, you will understand why we're calling these Y, X, and R. Alright? So, you need to memorize this and try to understand it. Now, I need you to imagine that we have a circle that has this radius and this point as the center of that circle, such as this one. Now we have this circle, the center of the circle is here, and this is our angle. So, sine D equals Y over R. So y equals r multiplied by sine d. And x equals r multiplied by cosine d. So if we have the angle and the radius, we can know with this simple equation the values of x and y. And maybe now you understand why we're calling them y, x, and r. R because this is the radius of the circle. Y because this is the y-axis. X because this is the x-axis. And if you want to find the coordinates of this point on the circle, it will be represented by x and y. So the x of this point equals this value, and the y at this point equals this value. So again, if we have the radius and if we have the angle, it means that we can know the coordinates of this point and any other point. Because if this point is here, the same formulas will apply, right? The same equations will apply. We'll still have our y, we will still have our x and our angle and our radius. The only constant here is the radius because it does not change. It's a radius. The angle will change, the y will change, and the x will change to match the coordinates of this point. Now that you understand the basic equation here, where we can calculate and figure out the coordinates based on the radius of the circle and the angle of the circle, let's move to the next concept. You need to understand that any donut chart, or you can imagine any donut chart as a pie chart that has a circle inside it, which represents the whole. And the percentage that we are using in our Excel sheet is the percentage of this angle, meaning that if we have 25% stated there, it means that this angle is 25% of the full angle of any circle, which is 360. Or you can imagine that when we say 25%, is that 25% of the area of this circle, not the donut chart, the pie chart, is covered. Meaning that this is 25%, this is 50%, this is 75%, and this is 100%. This is 75% because the area that is covered is 75%. Let's go back to that sheet we had and try to imagine the triangle here and the circle and the hole. Everything we explained in our PowerPoint sheet can be applied right here, all right? So let's say that I want to find a point here. I want to know the x and y values here. We can imagine the coordinates. This is our center, this is our radius, okay, and this is our start. So the x and y values here are simply formulas of the angle and the radius. So now we know the radius, we only need to know the angle. And as explained earlier, the angle is the percentage, in this case it's 70% multiplied by 360, right? And this is exactly what we have here. The degree, or you can call it angle, which is B8, which is the percentage multiplied by 360. So if you draw an angle with 252 degrees, this angle will be drawn, right? Let's change this to 50, and you will see that this is 180 because this angle equals 180. If we change this to 100, this will be 360, which closes the whole circle. Okay? Now that you understand this concept, and you have the remaining, you have the percentage, you have the degree, you need to figure out the radius. And that is easy. First, you need to put any scatter chart here because we need to have the x and y axis. Remember, in the donut or pie charts, we don't have x and y. X and y comes with the line charts, scatter charts, and some other charts. So, since we need scatter charts to plot those 2 points, let's insert a scatter chart. And that can be done by adding any value for now and then changing the chart type to combo chart with donut chart and scatter chart. So let's create the 2 points, point 1 and point 2. Put any data you want here. Doesn't matter what kind of data. Okay? And just right click, select data, add data, series name, let's name it point 2. Series value, let's put this value. And just click OK. Now, right click, change chart type, go to combo, series 1, which is our main donut chart, should be a donut chart. Series 2 or point 2 should be scattered. So we change it to scattered and we don't want any secondary axis. Click OK and now we have this point here. Now let's change those coordinates to match the ones we had in our slide. We want the y-axis to be in the middle and x-axis to be in the middle as well, just like the one we saw in our slide. To do that, let's make this minus 0.5 to 0.5 and make the y the same, minus 0.5 to 0.5. Click on the axis data, go to options, axis options, and then change the minimum to minus 0.5 and the maximum to 0.5. Now you can see that our 0 is in the middle. We'll do the same here. We'll change this to minus 0.5 and the maximum to 0.5. Now we have our zeros in the middle, right? Now let's go back to this donut chart and change the angle to start from here and change the angle to 90. Right? Let's see if it's still working. This is 50, yeah, perfect. 75, perfect. 40, perfect. So it's working fine. Now we need to fix this thickness. Right? So to make it easy for calculation, let's keep it as 0.1. So we can change the donut hole size to make this 0.1. We'll increase it a little bit, increase it a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. We have to do this manually, there is no other way around it. Now you can see that this thickness is from minus 0.5 to minus 0.4, which is 0.1. Now if you increase this or decrease it, that will not change. Alright? So now we have this fixed. And since this point is fixed and it will not move when we change the percentage, then the coordinate here, which is in the center, should be fixed. Right? Which is 0.5, which represents this point, minus half of this thickness. We know that the thickness is 0.1, so half of it is 0.05. 0.5 minus 0.05, which should equal to 0.45. And this will be our x-axis, right? The x-coordinate. The y-coordinate is 0, which is here. So now we right-click, select data, go to point 2 and edit. The x value should be 0.45 and the y value should be 0. Okay, and okay. The axis here, if you can see, it changed from minus 0.5 to 0. We need to change it to be minus 0.5 to 0.5. So click on it, go to options, axis options, minus 0.5 to 0.5. And now our point is fixed here. Right? Now go to fill, marker, marker options, built in, and increase this to 30, maybe a little bit more, let's say 35, and make the fill solid fill and no line for the border. Let's see. Alright, so now we have our first rounded edge. The second rounded edge will be here, and this is where we need to apply our formula, the sine and cosine of the angle. Now we have the angle already, right? We have the degree here, which is calculated. The x equals the radius multiplied by cosine the angle, right? So we can easily just multiply the radius by cosine of this angle. However, keep in mind that our radius is not 0.5 anymore, it's 0.45 because we are looking for the coordinates here in the middle of this thickness, which is again 0.5 minus 0.05, which we are calling here as radius 2. As you can see, the formula is B12, which is the radius 2, multiplied by cosine B9. And keep in mind that the sine and cosine does not work with a degree, it has to be converted to radians. So this is a formula that you need to use when you use cosine and sine in Excel. So you don't put the cosine of the angle, cosine the radians of the angle, alright? And this will give you the x value. The y value, again, let's go back to that chart. The y value equals r, which is 0.45 multiplied by sine the angle, which is exactly what we have here. R, which is radius 2, 0.45 multiplied by sine radians of the angle that we calculated. And now right click, select data, add data, series name 0.1, series x value, this is the value, y value, this is the value, and click OK and OK. Now you have the second point here. Go to marker, marker options, built-in, and put the same value, which is 36, I believe. And yeah, this is the color. Let's change the color to this and no line. This is your chart. Now we need to add the text box inside it to represent the percentage itself. So insert text box, just drag it here and click on the text box itself, click on the formula bar, equals, and go to the percentage. Now this will be linked to that. Just increase the size, change the color the way that suits you. Just put it in the middle, make it a little bit bigger, keep it in the center. Just make sure that if this is 100, this will not change the shape. Now just let's go to format and shape outline. Let's make it no outline. And then click on the chart and remove everything else. Let's test it. 60, it's working fine. 80 is working fine. 90, working fine. 25. And I hope that this explains the theory behind this amazing donut chart. So I will leave the link of the video I watched that explains how to do this chart in the description below. And I would like to seize this opportunity and thank the creator of that channel for the amazing content she has. So by any chance, Leila, if you're watching this video, thank you so much. I learned a lot from you. With that being said, thank you very much for watching. If you like the content of this channel, please consider subscribing because I will be uploading a video on weekly basis, and hopefully down the road in the future, I will be uploading more videos per week just to teach you things like that. Thank you very much for watching and stay productive. Happy learning, everyone.